Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Every Library Live. Tonight, we're coming to you for award winners in conversation. As always, I'm Gigi Howard. I'm the host of Drinks in the Library, where every week I interview someone about their favorite book and we pair it with a drink. And I could not be more thrilled to be coming to you tonight with my pals, EveryLibrary, the only political action committee for libraries, and we are celebrating award-winning authors. I am being joined by the amazing Rhonda McKnight. Rhonda McKnight is the winner of 3 Emma Awards, 2015 and 2 for 2024. We're going to talk all about that. She was also the winner of a Christie Award this past year. So I'm so pleased to be with you here tonight, Rhonda. You craft powerful and faith-filled stories that explore forgiveness, family, and hope. Your latest novel, got it right here. That's right. We're going to be talking about Bitter and Sweet, which is about two sisters who return to South Carolina to save their grandmother's struggling restaurant and uncover a century-old legacy of their ancestor, Tabitha Cooper. This is a powerful story of food, family, and faith. I love it. And they learn that healing the past is the key to embracing the blessings of today. Rhonda, I'm so pleased to be here with you tonight. Um, let's just go dive right into it. Let's talk about Bitter and Sweet.
Okay, let's do that. Thank you so much for having me. Always excited to talk about this book. It's really one of the truly out of the 27 books I have published, it's a story really very deeply personal and story of my heart.
Yeah, so it's two sisters. Do you want to talk us a little bit through it's the two sisters?
Yeah, sure. So we have Mariah, who is the oldest, and Sabrina. And Mariah and Sabrina are estranged. They don't have a relationship at all. My inspiration for wanting to write about them was I had never written a book about sisters. And I wanted to write a book about sisters who I thought had conflict, didn't get along. That's not my experience. I have one sister and we get along wonderfully. You know, I'm the oldest and she does what I tell her to do. So, so we get along great.
That's how it works. That's how it has to work.
So I wanted to write a book about sisters, and so Mariah and Sabrina were born, and I knew that they were going to have very different personalities. Mariah is a restaurant. She's had been the manager of a very popular diner, one of those places that's on the list of diners to visit in in the upstate of South Carolina. It was a restaurant that she started with didn't start, but took over for her husband's family. It was a failing business. She helped turned it into a regional brand. They even had merchandise in Target, things like that, very popular. But her marriage has fallen apart. And with that, her career went with it because the restaurant is part of her husband's family. And so she's devastated. She's in a really bad place because of the divorce, because of losing her career, and just in general has struggled with finding her joy kind of her entire life. And it's a big part of the story. And then we have Sabrina, who's baby sis. She's the one that's sort of artsy. She makes cakes, but she's in a bad place herself. She's dealing with a deep personal loss. She's a single mom who is, when the book opens, and this is no secret, it's not a spoiler, it's on the back of the cover. She's homeless. She's living in her van, having a really hard time trying to find solid ground again. And so these sisters have not had a relationship at all. Their grandmother sends them a cryptic text message separately, not together, and tells them to come home. Well, they travel to the South Carolina Lowcountry where their family is from. They think they're coming because their grandfather, who has been sick, is perhaps worse. And when they arrive, Grandma says, "No, I've got Grandpa. What I need you two to do is I need you to go and I need you to reopen the restaurant. This restaurant has been in their family for 87 years. It's been closed since the grandfather's illness. But these two sisters don't have a relationship. So there's a lot going on in the kitchen that has nothing to do with cooking."
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much tension and depth in this story. What came first, the characters or the storyline? What came to you first?
Yeah, so I think that the storyline came first. What happened is I knew I wanted to write a story about sisters, so I sort of pinned things on a wall that I have on my writing wall, and so I had a note card up there that said
Okay.
"Sisters in
Okay.
Conflict." I knew I wanted to set a book in a restaurant because I'm writing my books. My current contract is books that are set in the Low Country, and hey, the Low Country is known for food, and so I thought it would be fun to write a
Mm-hmm.
story about the setting being a restaurant, because then if they are sort of working in this restaurant, restaurants are close quarters, there's
Yeah.
heat and steam, and so I felt like that would intensify some of the conflict. um, and then one of the other things, there are things like when I plot my stories, I just have like these ideas. And so I knew I wanted sisters. I knew I wanted Low Country. I figured I wanted a restaurant.
Right.
One of the reasons I wanted a restaurant also is I sort of wanted to honor women in our families who cook. I think that
Mm-hmm.
every woman can look back in her family line, perhaps, and find a woman who, back during the Great Depression, or even further back, just like all through our bloodlines, who pretty really kept their families together with some skill that she had that's not always acknowledged. She knew how to cook. She knew how to make a pie. She knew how to make a quilt, garden. There are things that women did during the Great Depression to literally
Mm-hmm.
save our families' lives. And we know about the women that went to work in, in manufacturing, but there
Right.
were also those in the South. There were also those simple things like a meal, and, being able to sell a pie, being able to sell something. And so I wanted to honor that, because I think that there are a lot of great historical fiction books that are being written, but and they're about famous women who have done amazing things. But I like to record the history of the everyday woman, because if her history isn't recorded in 100 years, they won't show up in books. And so I wanted to do that because I've had those women in my family that I
Mm-hmm.
honored and really appreciate. And so that was pinned on the wall. And then there was also, I felt like it was time, and I'm sure we'll get into this, for me to write a story that centered um, maternal health, maternal death. And so by the time I had all those things pinned on the wall, and I knew I wanted to write about these two sisters, and I wanted them really different, they just sort of, they showed up on their own. My characters always show up at really inconvenient times, like in the shower or while I'm driving. Um, yeah, always. They love showing up
Always.
in the shower. There's something about water. And so they showed up, and I hear their voices, and I saw Mariah in that tub, um, really depressed at the end. And then Sabrina, at the beginning of her chapter, homeless with the knock on the door, because she's parked in the wrong place. And so I met them, and then our journey together began.
Well, I love that so much. And so, okay, but we have to talk also about the wall and your writing process.
Mhm.
And I'm guessing that's sort of like how you come together as you see ideas or characters. And what's that like for you?
It is. I think it's a beautiful part of my planning process, because one of the things I love to do is I love to create characters and worlds and outlines. And the hard part for me is draft writing. So I'll play with the wall
Yeah.
forever, so that's the fun part. I really try to get to know my characters as much as I can, kind of draft as much of their backgrounds as I can before I start writing.
Hmm.
Um, and then I write the first chapter and maybe the second chapter. Always write the last chapter before I go back to the other writing. I create a complete outline, which I always deviate from, but I'm one of those writers that has to kind of know where I'm going. It frustrates, like I said, draft writing is difficult for me. I love the revision process. So when I'm getting that first draft out, I'm overwhelmed, I'm stressed, I'm drinking too much Coke, eating too many chips. Oh, let's just get this to the end. And so the wall is like a beautiful thing. I love the wall because the wall gives me joy. The wall is the beginning. The wall is where I create people that I hope my readers will fall in love with.
I love that. I love that. I want to get to the awards, but I also just want to ask why we're talking about this as well, because you mentioned depression and grief, and your books often explore love, grief, healing.
Mm.
Which of these emotions is the hardest for you to write, to craft authentically, I guess, to make it feel authentic?
I don't think any of them are difficult for me to craft. I think what's happening, I turn 60 next month. And so I think what's happening is, hey, right? I think what's happening is as I've aged, I've been writing, I've been professional, I've been published since 2009. And I think what has happened is as I age, I experience more grief. There are things, and so grief just has become a theme
Mm.
in my books. I have friends, and I'm losing family, and I have friends that have lost their mothers and their fathers, and I still have mine. Thank God, I'm doing caregiving now. But I think that, and people certainly can experience grief very young. I mean, we have that in this book, but we definitely, the longer you live, the more grief, the more things you lose. It's not just about people grief. It's about, perhaps opportunities that you thought you might want to have, the end of a marriage, a career that maybe doesn't go the way that you want it to do. There are lots of things that we grieve. And so I think that as I explore characters and just sort of dive into the human condition, their motivations, and start thinking about what does it look like for a woman to have had her husband say, I want this 10-year marriage is over, and it comes from nowhere, like what that shock is like. And so I imagine what that shock is like. And then I bring my own emotions, because I've experienced grief, into that. And I've always been a writer who has loved writing emotionally, emotional stories for women. I love tapping into the emotions of women and meeting women where I believe they are. And so that's not the hard part. That's actually it just happens as I'm writing, as I get to know the characters more. Because like I said, I try to get to know them as much as possible before. But I believe that sometimes writers can be really, people, especially people who are planners, can, overplan. They're filling out these forms about where they go to church, what's their favorite color, their favorite ice cream, and we all kind of do, versions of that. But the truth is, you don't get to know your characters until you are writing about them. Just the same way that we get to know other people in real life over time. And so over time, as I spend time with these characters, they come to life, and I look for those opportunities to just put them in spaces where they have conflict, and they like, just like real people, like the emotions just come out.
Yeah. And I love how you said that. And like you said, just like real people, just like you experience, as we all experience grief through life, and more, unfortunately, I imagine your readership has come back to you and told you moments of healing that they've had reading these authentic stories. How does that feel?
Yeah, it's wonderful, because I've got readers that have been with me from the beginning, from the first book.
Awesome.
And that's an awesome thing. And so I wrote a lot of romance. I started off writing really sort of emotionally dramatic relationship fiction, couples going through divorces and things, for the first 3 books. And then I independently published, I think, probably 22 romances that were sweet and fun, and not always light, because I'm always dealing with sort of deeper themes in life. And so I wrote those, and then I had I was inspired during the pandemic. I wanted to write a book. I think during the pandemic, I don't know about you, but I was one of those people who's out in my garden, and I was a gardener before the pandemic. I just want to make that clear. I was out in my garden, and I was thinking about my legacy as a writer, and I had enjoyed writing the romance. People would buy them. I got to quit my job in 2018, and that's a big thing for any writer to be able to support themselves. And so, but I wanted to write something that I felt like I wanted to write stories that just would last a little long in the reader's mind and on their, even on their shelves, and I felt like it was time for me to sort of, even though I will always write about love because I think it's important, there's always going to be some romance in a Rhonda McKnight book. I wanted to write books that would sort of have a more lasting legacy. And that's when I got the idea for my first Little Country novel and came back into traditional publishing with HarperCollins. And so, and then Bitter and Sweet was my second, and my third is coming out in September. But so I love taking people through it. Like it's my jam. And so my readers that have been with me for a long time, they know I'm going to take them through a range of emotions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I am a sad book person. So yeah, I totally feel that for sure. And okay, so talking about your legacy, let's talk about the Emma Awards and the Christie Awards that you just got in 2024 and then also in 2025. So I know the latest Emma Awards were for The Thing About Home.
Yes.
Tell us about winning those awards.
I'm one of those people that when I'm nominated, that's it. I'm excited. I never expect to win anything. So when I win, I'm like, oh, wow, that happened. And so when I was nominated, when I finaled for the Emma, I was like, okay, that's really cool. But the Romance Slam Jam organization that awards the Emma is, it's really kind of traditionally romance, boy meets girl, falls in love, that, very traditional. The Thing About Home isn't a traditional romance. It's a women's fiction novel with a strong romance. So even though I finaled, I thought, well, I finaled, that's cool. We'll see. It's good publicity, it's whatever, right? So when I won, and it sort of swept the awards in terms of the best hero and the best heroine and the best setting and the best, I was blown away.
Wow.
I love The Thing About Home. It's a really important book, but I thought for an organization that typically awards, traditional romance, I don't even know how to explain how excited I was. And when the Emma came in the mail, it's beautiful. It was wonderful. When I win, it's just, I'm always surprised, but then I always feel so honored that people related to my stories enough for one of my books to rise to the top. I write for readers, so any award that I win it's about us, the relationship that we have. So I'm winning for me, and I'm winning for the people who have kept me writing, because there have been many times in my career where I thought, I'm done with this, and then I'll have readers say, when is the next book? And you go, oh, you want another book? Oh, okay, let me come up with something. Literally, I've had times where that is exactly what has happened. I had decided, I think I'm done with this. And then readers said, we want another book. And I said, oh, okay, let me do that, And so I feel like the award is for us.
Yeah. Well, and look, they were right? They were right. I also wanted to talk about the Christie Awards, because those are awards that go to books about faith and stories like that. So what was it like winning that Christie Award for? Wow. And that was for Bitter and Sweet, correct?
Yes, it was. So I finaled, when I finaled last year, I finaled for The Thing About Home. That was exciting. I did not win that award, but I was really honored to have finaled. And so when Bitter and Sweet finaled again this year, I was like, wow, that's 2 years in a row with the Christies in general fiction. I again was just really honored and just humbled, that this book that was so important to me had that distinction. So when I attended, the awards were virtual. And so when I attended the awards, and Bitter and Sweet had not won in the general fiction category, um, you know, like I said, I wasn't necessarily expecting to win. But then they have an award called the Amplified Christie, which is an award that is awarded to one book in a BIPOC category. And I did not expect that. I cried. I cried. My speech was long, because I didn't even have one really prepared, not for Amplified. And I felt it was such an honor, because you have to, I'll just say this, the Christie's is a very distinctive award, gold seal on the book. I
Yeah.
remember those when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And there aren't very many Christie's that are awarded to BIPOC books
Right.
with BIPOC characters. Okay. And so the first time that I saw a Christie was I think it was 2001. The author was Sharon Yule Foster, who has since passed away. She's the first Black author to win a Christie Award.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, wow, and then I don't think anyone won again for maybe 15, almost 20 years. And so having known Sharon, eventually meeting her when I got published for the first time, having conversations with this wonderful woman who is such a trailblazer,
Yeah.
and then coming behind her and winning the award that she won, that really drew me to believe that I could write Christian fiction
Mm-hmm.
and get published. And it was such an honor. I cried all the way through my speech.
Oh.
It was a long speech. I thanked everybody. It was like the Academy Awards, and it was beautiful. The award itself is gorgeous. I wish I had brought it into this room so I could show it, but it meant a lot. It's the Christie is very competitive.
Mm-hmm.
I believe there are 56 judges. That's a
Wow.
lot.
That's
A
a lot.
lot of
Wow.
judges, and they have a couple of hundred books that are entered that enter. And so even finaling, like being one of the 4 finalists, it's a huge deal when there are a couple of hundred books that are submitted for this award.
Yeah. Well, and now you are carrying this torch. And so how does it feel to, I imagine, being an inspiration to the next generation of BIPOC authors who are wanting to do the same thing?
It does. I have a writer's boot camp that I work with, writers that write with me online on Zoom 4 nights a week. They're all writing inspirational fiction. And I'm able to share so much with them. And, I appreciate the fact that I think that they have told me, sometimes you don't want to meet your heroes, but, they tell me that, and they all attended the Christie ceremony, to watch
Oh,
me win. And I've been with these women for, I think, 2.5 years. And so it is a responsibility. And one of the things that I know that I need to just continue always writing really strong books that represent strong women, strong Black women.
mm-hmm.
I want to, always highlight the Gullah culture in my low country fiction, because they don't get as much representation as I think that they should. And so there is a lot of responsibility, but I feel like when you show up as your authentic self and you just sort of
Mm-hmm.
operate from core values of being honest and trying to have like a person of good character,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like a burden. It feels like a gift.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I mean, that's authentic living for you. So excellent, excellent. That's inspiring us for us all. Okay. So I was going to ask you to pair your next book with a drink because that's my thing. But as I've learned, your thing is the food, all the low country food. So we're thinking about your next book, which you said is coming out in September, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
What kind of meal would you say this book is inspiring for you?
Wow. So there's a lot of food in this book too. And there's like this whole food rave scene. And now I'm trying to remember what some of the things were, but there is always going to be seafood. So you're always going to have shrimp,
Mm-hmm.
and oysters are,
Mm-hmm.
a big part of low country cuisine. So you're going to have the seafood. I'm thinking shrimp and grits. Why not? Because it's one of my favorites.
Yes.
Shrimp and
Same.
grits, a cheddar, some kind of cheddar bay biscuit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's always greens. The gullah and people in the South in general. There's
Yeah.
always going to be, some kind of green vegetable, something
Yes.
healthy. But I don't know that we make it that healthy with all the extra that we do to it. So, but some kind of greens. And there is going to be a drink for sure. There's going to be some sweet tea.
Oh yeah.
It's probably going to be in a mason jar.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sweet tea. And just so I've made my way up the East Coast, but I started in Atlanta, grew up in Charlotte. Now I'm in Richmond. So all the things you're talking about, I grew up, my grandma stirring the grits, but you had to eat them from the middle out because the outside would be too hot. And I mean, just, that's Southern cooking for you.
Yes.
So, wonderful. I guess I'm also was kind of curious since I'm a library person, if like libraries had an impact on your life or your
Oh,
experiences with
wow.
libraries.
That's a great question. One of my first jobs when I was a teenager was I worked in the public library.
Really?
And yes, and so I worked in the public library. It was the best job ever. And actually, I wanted to be a librarian. I didn't know how to be a librarian back then. So I went to college and studied something else. But when I was in my probably like 22, 23, I thought, can I still become a librarian?
Yeah.
And so I looked into a program. So like there are
Okay.
many programs now. Back then, you're talking the early 90s, there weren't as many programs. And I was living in New Jersey because that's where I'm originally from. And there was one library program, and I think it was at Rutgers, and that was in like an hour and 15 minutes away from where I lived. And it just felt like something overwhelming that I couldn't do, which, when you're really young, sometimes you think something's it's going to take years and the driving and stuff. And then when you get older, you realize like I should have done that when I was, And so, the funny thing is I have great relationships with librarians here in South Carolina. Done events at the South Carolina Library Conference. I went to ALA in San Diego, spoke at ALA. I love libraries. And so libraries are always first on my book tour. Like they are always in the rotation on my book tour because I believe in the libraries. And I got to meet Amanda Jones last year. Where's her book?
Yes.
She and I were on a panel at a conference together. We had dinner. I love her. She is awesome.
She is awesome.
So yeah, like I could talk about libraries all day. I love whenever I move somewhere, the first thing I do is go get a library card. That's like my first thing that I do.
Oh, that is thank you so much for your positive and I love that and amazing. So I can't wait for the next book tour.
Yes.
Hopefully maybe you'll come to my library.
Maybe I will.
Yes.
Richmond. I plan to come to Virginia with the next book.
Okay, excellent. Let's make it happen. All right, I have time for one more question. Real quick. As a fellow Southerner, what is a stereotype about Southern women or faith-based fiction that you love proving wrong?
What I love about proving wrong about faith-based fiction is that it is not a sermon in a book, and I know that there are people who have self-published some books that feel like, sermons in a book. But I think that Thomas Nelson and Baker Books, a lot of the Christian publishers have worked really hard over the last 10 years to bring really realistic stories to the forefront. about people who have real problems. I mean, Mariah and Sabrina and even Tabitha, you're talking about real problems. Casey gets drunk and from the thing about home and ruins her brand as a social media influencer. And 10 years ago, you would not have had those stories. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, writing about divorce was sticky. And so Christian fiction has evolved and changed, and we're looking to tell stories about real people in crisis. And so you're not going to, it's not your, I'm going to just say this, it's not your mother's or your grandmother's Christian fiction. With respect to Southern women, I love Southern women. I think that one of the stereotypes that I know that I would hear because I grew up in the North, I've been in the South now for 26 years, that people just sort of, I think, thought that some Southern women were, I got the impression that people thought they were sort of a doormat, or that they were sort of run over. Southern women are smart, they're slick, okay? And so they're running things, okay? You best believe.
Yes.
They're running things, and there's a way to get things done, and so and they know how to get it done. And so the other thing is that Southern women are just really, if you meet a Southern woman and you develop a relationship with her, you have truly got a sister for life. There's a warmth there, and a desire to hold on to their people, their tribe.
I love that. What a beautiful way to end this conversation. Rhonda, thank you so much for being here with me tonight, as well as with EveryLibrary, for our award winners in conversation. This has been absolutely beautiful. Can't wait for the next book.
Yeah.
And so for everyone out there, I know there's another EveryLibrary event later tonight. Hope to see you there. And Rhonda, we'll see you next time.
Yes, we will. Thank you for having me.
Good night.
Good night.